we'll use in terms of points. We'll calculate everything in terms of points. So if it is 2G and 3GS, it's like a 320 by 480. It's a basic dimension we count in points. So when we define any graphical element, then we'll specify what is the width and height of a specific element in terms of points. So we count in points. So when coming to 4 and 4S, they're the same like 320 by 480. So if the device is targeted for 5 and 5S, the device is like 320 width and 568 of height. These are the point dimension for 5 and 5S. When it comes to iPhone 6, so if you look at iPhone 4 and 5 and 5S, so they changed in terms of pixels. So they enhanced the user interface like rendering wise or else image display. They given a change to double the pixel size. Points are same, but each point is divided into 2 pixels, like 240 640 by 960 pixels. When it comes to 5 and 5S, they enhance the pixel size. So when we use any graphical elements like images, any static images which you want to display on your application, so we'll prefer in 3 dimensions. One is like 1x images. These are the basic. Let's say for example there is a login button image which required some 100 by 10, so it is like 100 width and 10 height, 10 pixel height. Then we should have a 3 images for that, 1x and 2x and 3x, so that the image will be rendered by the device, depends on its configuration. So your operating system will choose which image needs to be displayed and based on the naming convention which we follow. It's like we have to give a 2x, for example login at the rate 2x.png, or login at the rate 1x.png, or login at the rate 3x.png. The name we have to add like at the rate. Later we needs to provide what is the pixel configuration. So then when it brings that application to specific device, then it capture the image based on that device. For example, if it is a less than 4s, then it's go with 1x image. If it is less than 4, then it will go with 3x image. If it is higher than 6, then we'll go for like 3 and 3x images. So when you can observe here, so what are the points of the device we have currently? 5 and 5s 320 by 568 points dimension, and 6 is having 320 and 568 points dimension. And these are, when coming to 6 and 6 plus, there is a 2 modes. The user can see in a display zoom mode and normal mode. When it is zoom, then you can see like a points wise it will get reduced. If it is a normal, so this is the basic dimension. So if you look at the inches, so this is like 3.5 inch devices. The iPhone 5 is a 4 inch device, and 6 is 4.7 inch, and 6 plus is 5.5 inch. The device has always been the fixed inches, but when the user interface display gets changed, then the points will be changed. If it is a normal mode, the 6 will take like 375 by 667 points. If it is a pixel wise, like it will be 2x, so we can see the pixels here. So this is the like a basic calculation in terms of points which we do. But when we do the like user interface development, we should keep all these things in our mind, because the existing applications will follow in points basis, but whereas the latest code which the applications are developing, so will follow the different constraints concept. There are different concepts they will follow. They won't specify any points, so they will do in the basis of ratio measurements. So then they will follow with ratios. So in earlier versions, all the code is followed in points version. So it is better to keep in mind like what's the devices are having in the older versions, and as well like the new devices, what is the basic points and all. So this is a basic chart. Here you can observe it, either 6 or 6 plus. So what are the points and rendering and how exactly it is. So this is we can, there won't be any confuse when we start the classes what is the difference between points and pixels. So this is only simple specification we can observe from here. What is the points and when it comes to pixels. So when the pixel comes into the place, when the points comes into the place. The pixel comes into the place when you use any images, displaying the images. When the points comes into the place when you define any frame or any region for any specific graphical element. The graphical element can be a button, or can be a label, or can be a text field, can be a text view, or can be a scroll view. So it kind of any kind of graphical user element. If you want to attach to one frame in a specific region, then we'll consider the things in terms of points instead of pixels. So this we can this we can discuss more into this. So when we uh, go what the image displays, the such kind of samples, when we start the UI kit implementation, then we can see more details. So this is the basic points and pixel dimension for an iOS. So you can see like gradual changes as well. This is very minor. Nobody will ask. There's some very few questions they will ask you, like what can be the dimension changes for iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, and what are the various versions are available from the beginning. There might be some certain questions they will ask. What differences you have observed from iPhone 4, 2, and 3G, or iPhone 4 or 6 and above. So what the differences you can find out. So there will be some certain questions. So before iPhone 4, the operating system is not having like is a like it's a multi. It's like there is no multitasking previously at 2G or 3G application level. So if you start any application, if you minimize your app and if you open it again, then it will start from the beginning before the 4S. Once the 4S comes into place, that they made it like a multitasking. So wherever you stopped, it will maintain the thread management and it handles how the application is last session is stopped and it will start with the same session. So that is the case they added in 4. And later when coming to the 5, the major change we can observe is like a device change. Since the Android is giving different devices with different dimensions, then the Apple is also the similarly moving in the same direction, like enhancing the device size. So they given a big device size and as well as they enhanced the pixel rendering. And apart from that, they change the internal frameworks like in some social configuration integrations. Earlier there is no tie-up for iPhone 4, there is no tie-up for Facebook and Twitter and all. So when coming to 5 and 5s, they are given a different framework which directly talk with Facebook or servers or Twitter servers where you can share the information. It's like one kind of framework, but since we have many frameworks, since when coming to the iPhone 5 to 6, then we have seen some certain changes in maps. So earlier the iPhone iOS developers used to use the Google Maps. So, but Apple is giving their own map kit and all the direction and region changes and everything we can right now find with Apple Map SDK. So they given that is one of the latest change they've adapted. And apart from that, there are many more frameworks they added. Like they changed in terms of xcode, or they changed in terms of templates. They changed in terms of virtual machine configurations. So there are certain features we can see. But if I say what is the major feature we can observe like in 4 to 5, then we can see the like a basic dimensional change, and they came up with storyboard and all the concept with 5. Before 5 there is no storyboard, they have only xib configuration. And when coming to the 6 device, so when the Apple is moved to iPhone 6, there are the certain changes they added to the iPhone 6. They bring that home kit or watch kit. There are different frameworks they added to communicate with different external devices. And the home kit provides you to communicate with internal like interior kind of sensors or thermostats, such kind of devices. It can talk and it can communicate with different cameras as well. And then when coming to 6 plus and all, like it's not only device. So when I talk about iPhone 6 plus, we can talk about iPhone iOS 9.0 version. So like SDK version will change when there are 2G and 3G and 3GS and 4 and 4S. There are SDKs also behind it. It's not only the device. When they launch the device, then they launch their one of the operating system latest release, so they will follow the same version. So right now we have like iOS 9, so that is comes with iPhone 6. So then we can talk about SDK level features. What I'm saying, all the features in terms of SDK. It's not in terms of device. So these are the some of the features where I given it, but we can find more details. But they will ask you the what are the major changes in iOS 9 to iOS 8 or iOS 8 to iOS 7. There will be one question. Is that's an optional? It's not mandatory question. Then we can once we start a SDK level, then it's better to go through. There are any differences, it's like name differences, we can make some couple of points for interview point of view. It's like it doesn't make any biggest change while you do the development, because when you do the development, we usually check the API class, what are the deprecate methods, what are the non-deprecate methods, which methods are available for which version, or which version we are targeting. Those all the things keep in mind, so when we're doing the development, so it won't be any biggest change, like a challenge for the developer to use the which method needs to be used for the specific version. But when coming to the interview point of view, it's better to make some 5 to 10 points from version to version change, so that will help you to, so some question is comes in that scenario, then we can say like there are some specific features. That's it. It's like a base kind of interview question and answer. So let's see. So I can give you some certain specific uh, changes from version to version, some 4 to 5 points. So for the interview point of view, and I can tell you the basic features of a current version which you are running like iOS 8. Most of the operating systems, like most of the applications, are supporting from iOS 7 itself, and still the coding is going from the iOS 8 and above, because nobody is writing like iOS 5 or 4 OS targeting. No one is targeting for iOS 4 or 5, because the all the old code is not compatible. It cannot provide you compatible user interface for the latest devices. So since that is a problem, they are upgrading for every application to support from iOS 8 and above. So all the major industry applications are targeting for 8 and above. So let's see what is the objective C, and then how it is driven, and what kind of naming conventions the objective C following, and why that naming conventions is came into this place for objective C. I will talk about something, the history of an objective C. When coming to the history of objective C, is basically objective C is derived from the basis of C language. Like we can say objective C, since C language is a procedure oriented, so they would like to make some object oriented kind of thing from the Apple side. They made it like objective C, and this is the basic intention to develop an objective C to support application development on Mac applications. So they added C and they added the features C and object oriented concepts. So since this is like commonly we call it like a C with an object oriented procedures, it comes with objective C, because since the C++ is also having the same like a object oriented concepts with the C language. But since we can see there are many pointer concepts in C language, most of them are getting some confusion to understand or to code with the C++ and sometimes. But they would like to make some different language which gives you better understanding, and which like clear some uh, confusion from the pointers usage and all the things. So they use it to develop this application, then they develop the objective C. So this objective C is developed by the next step. So this is the one of the organization which developed this objective C language. Since this next step is handled, and this handled by the uh, like Steve Jobs, or after that it's migrated to Apple. And this objective C they used for to develop the Mac applications later on. Later, so they used the objective C to develop the iOS apps as well. So when this is developed by the next step, all the API classes which objective C is having is follow with NS. So these two characters will be are are used as a prefix for any API. So if a API class is followed with NS, means it's a objective C class. So we can keep in mind there are two things we are using. One is like objective C, one is like iOS SDK. So iOS SDK level there are certain classes, because each framework is having its own API classes. So objective C is supports all API classes which followed with NS. So when a class is followed with NS, means that is a objective C specific class. We call it a framework. They placed all the objective C API classes in foundation framework, foundation kit. So there are different frameworks we have. Core foundation. So core foundation is like it's like a low level, it's like a low layer, it's which more compatible with C language. And they written another template kind of thing from the core foundation, they derived to NS foundation. So NS foundation kit, we generally call it like NS foundation kit. So because why I'm saying like an NS foundation kit, all the API classes which there in the foundation kit is followed with NS prefix. So if I say like a string, that is NS string. If I say like an object, that is NS object. So if I say like some NS exception, so that is NS exception. So we call everything is by adding the NS as a prefix. So we call that class name. So it is there in the foundation kit framework, and we have a core foundation kit framework as well. So this is completely in like talk with your C language, and it's a there are we use a library, like we use a compiler like LLVM for to either to understand the language or to compile the language, or to either to interpret the language. We use the virtual machine, like low level virtual machine. So this low level virtual machine is having one of the component is like a CLang. So like this CLang will take care about your C language, all kind of functional approaches to understand, to compile, and it uses like Objective C as well to understand and do it, the C language. So then the virtual machine will come, the C lang will communicate with your virtual machine in order to provide you mission based language kind of thing. Then it will take care about object oriented conversion, and as well as it will give you the mission level coding. And we start with all applications with xcode PROZ. So this is a application project which we create. Since we are using xcode, so we call it like xcode, and that is the project name, so we call it like a xcode PROZ. It's like our project extension name. So if you create any product, the product will named as like a .xcode PROZ. That is a since source code. So when you compile it, then it will become a .app. So when you before you upload, then it will become an IPA. So these are the basic technical terms which we use here, and the file extension is also be changed in this scenario. Like we start with .xcode PROZ. So after that, it will give you one build product with .app. So we'll convert this as like a .ipa. So these are your file names. So .ipa file will use to distribute to your app store or to any device installation. So we call this .ipa file as like a binary. This is a binary file, we call this. So this is the basic application life cycle, like if it in a high level, so how it changes the name when the format is got changed. This is like source level, and we can like object level, and it will come to your binary level. So why the objective C is following NS? So NS, I hope you are clear why all the classes in objective C is followed with NS. So Objective C, if you say like what kind of language it was, so it's simple. We can say it's not a procedure-oriented language. It's communicated message-oriented and object-oriented programming language. It's not a fully object-oriented language, since it follows the sum of structures and C language concepts as well. So it's like partially implemented object-oriented language, and it's we call it like a message-oriented language as well. So when we do any message communication, like method to method communication, or like communicating data passing from one method to another method, or one object to another object, then it follow some of the message communication methodologies. So because of that reason, we call this Objective C as like a message or partial object oriented programming language. And it's, as I said, Objective C is developed based on the C language and by adding the object oriented procedures. So what we discuss in object oriented procedures, in a common terms, an object oriented procedure language will have a specific concepts like a classes and objects, data encapsulation or inheritance, and polymorphism and message passing. Since we have some other concepts like a uh, dynamic binding, so that is the one of the future, since the object oriented procedures will provide you. So we talk about everything in terms of classes, and we talk about every entities in a real time. We'll talk about in the name of objects, and we use different concepts like how the data is abstracted, and what kind of data encapsulation mechanisms, how the data is encapsulated. So these all the basic primary concepts are followed by the object oriented procedures. So these are the common object oriented procedures, and their meanings and their implementations is same when you compare from the other object oriented procedure languages. There is no new difference we found here, so it's like a similar kind of thing. So what is class and what is object? If you look into any object Java language, or if you look into any C# or .NET, or if you work with any scripting languages, so what are the object oriented procedures we have seen? This is the same, there is no difference. Only the difference in terms of designing with Objective C programming, so like Objective-C API classes, and syntax wise we can find some differences, but the basic behavior is same. What is mean by class and what is mean by object, those are all same. So we'll explain all these concepts, like where the data abstraction comes into the place and how the data encapsulation is done, These are all the things. And apart from that, there are many more, but we'll see object oriented concepts will start now. And we can, so these are the basic things and object oriented procedures. uh, Before going to this object oriented procedures concept by concept, we'll have a session on xcode to understand better, or to understand bit more in detail with xcode before we start this concept. This is like a old one. It's not like a latest diagram for an xcode, but we can find the names and all the regions. So how we call which region is in terms of what name. So if I open this xcode, we can look into this. So what are the toolbars we have, and we can call it as like so we can say like this is the toolbar, as we can see it here. So we can find different things like on the toolbar. So this is the whole one, we call it like a toolbar. So here you can these are like a basic things, like you can close or minimize or you can maximize. This is the button to run your application. You can set what kind of schema you want. Either you want to run it, or you want to test it, or you want to profile the application. So testing, as I told you, that it takes the help of instruments to do it, and we have an option like profile. So this help you to profilize your application. It's like a memory. This is to run the test cases, and this is to check your memory management and performance and all the things with your instruments. This runs all your test cases or code coverage of your project. So if you do any single logic or any kind of logic, so we have to test with your writing a test cases. Then if you want to run a test case, then we need to run application in test mode. So this is the changing of a schema, and this is for profiling the application. So when you profile application, it links with your instruments tool. There you can choose what kind of profile you want. So either you want to test a memory leaks, or you want to test a memory allocations, or or data management. So what we want, so we can choose one concept from the instruments, and we can test application in that same region. So this is analyzing. So xcode helps you to analyze your code. Is there any dangling points, or is there any variables or unused objects which you are created, or is there any unused memory? It's like it's when you create some variables, but you won't make sure those variables are eligible for deallocation. Still it keeps some amount of memory in the heap. So it's like it calls your memory allocations, like memory management side. So it helps you to analyze your code. Is there any points which you needs to override? It helps you that xcode will give you all the concepts. We have to choose a option, so which schema we want. So this is where you we can see the like what target is running for the application. we have different targets. When we have a different schemas, we have different targets. We can see two targets here, two schemas. One is test schema and one is like development schema. If you run the application, you can run in different schemas. This is like a normal run. So if you use, this is your application name. So what kind of targets you have? Your application can have multiple targets. One target can run the test cases. One target can run your development API classes. What target you would like to run, so this we needs to select, and later you have to target what kind of device you would like to run. So here this is an option to choose your simulator or device. So this is the iOS iPhone, and or else these are the any different devices. If you want to run, you can choose any device, and if you want to run, or else if you want to add additional simulators, you can find an option here where you can add an additional simulators if you have. So these are all the different simulators. Since I have all iPhone 4s, 5, 5s, 6 plus, so you can add something, and is it. So previously I was not able to see these iPhone, or only I can see iPod simulators. So now I am able to see the iPhone as well, because the application is not configured. The environment is not set for universal, so I set it to universal by changing some universal concept here. So I am able to see all the simulators. So you can choose one of the simulator to which you want to run this target. This target will run in this simulator. Here this is like your area where you can observe the status of the application. So what the application, right, as the application is running, or the application is building, or you compiling it, or you are running it, what is the status, you can find the status here. So it's like I build the application, it's saying that build the project name, what's the status, whether it is succeeded or failed with error, and what it is. So at what time I did that build. So you can find that date and time at here, and this you can look at the what warnings. These are warnings. If you can find the errors as well, if there are any errors, you can see the errors count. If you tap on it, it will open you the number of errors or warnings you can easily find from this navigation bar. So this is like overall toolbar which you can find. So these are the different options. You can split this environment into different parts, and you can check more than one file at a time. So these are the different options which give you that. I will tell you that this is like assistant editor, and this is like a version editor, and this is like a standard editor. So these are the editor buttons, you can see it here. So if you keep some time your mouse, then you can find the what's the name and what's the use of that specific button. So these are like navigator buttons, either you can open and close. So this is like your console, log file area, log area. This is your quick help or else property inspector area. So this is, we call it like a property inspector and some kind of thing. So this is like a navigation buttons where you can navigate, like you can handle your xcode application. This is one of the UI view, we can say like a xcode view area you can handle with the help of this navigation bar.
Suresh,
Yes,
why the date is um, there? You mentioned the date
it's like
showing up
old date,
on that,
because this date I built it in last time, not now. Now if I build,
but date is June 3rd.
means like I maybe I build the application right now, you see the date today at 7:58. So this will give
Okay,
you that what the lot like latest build with you done with that application. So I opened this application from my system. It may be this sample I've done in years back, you might have seen the same thing.
okay.
So there is no storyboard here. This is very old code, it's like from 2013, as you said. This I developed in 2013 maybe. So this sample, but since it follows the same things. So right now these are the xibs are there. We are using the xibs and all, and we are changing some kind of storyboards as well. So this is your navigation area. and you can find from this image. So what is the which area will call it in with name, what name. So this is like your navigation area, whole area is called navigation area. These are navigation section selector bars. So you can select and you can view the source code. So these are the button, like you can see in normal folder sections how you want the display. This is like a tree hierarchy, it's like a folder hierarchy. If you want to search any file in your project, then you can search with it. If there are any file which matches this name, so it will give you that. It's like a easy search from your bundle. So your bundle, from your bundle, which class you would like to search or which string you want to search, it gives you a string search. Based on that, it will display all the files and combinations, and you can replace it throughout the application. If you want to change that, if you want to replace that, you can replace it directly. And this is the navigation button where you can easily identify what are the errors or warnings which the application is having currently. So we can see that is there any warning. So we can find there are different warnings are there, so we can find it. So it give you your throughout application errors and warnings. So this is like the test cases. Have you run any test cases? If you run the test cases, you can find it here. So this application is having demo projects and maps test. This is one of the test target I'm having. So if I run this target, I can able to see is there any running cases or not. So if there are any session bugs like debugging sessions, if I did any debugging with this application, I can able to see that how many times I have done. So what is the debugging procedure? This is like breakpoints. You can test your application line by line by keeping your breakpoints. If I click at here, if I do a single tap, so it will give you on breakpoint. So breakpoint, the name itself will give you, it's like it will break your interpretation. So while you're debugging your application, you can stop your so like the compiler can be like you can stop your process. You can able to understand so how that line is executing, so that we can track it and we can debug. So this is, we call it like a breakpoints. So if the application is having any number of breakpoints, all the breakpoints will be displayed. So you can see the list is displayed at there. It's not only one file, you can display at any file. If you keep a breakpoint at any file, you can see all the breakpoints. If I don't want, I can select and I can remove it all the breakpoints at the same time. Adding and removing, this is like invalidating the breakpoints. Now it will be valid. If I invalidate, then no breakpoint will be like, there is no breakpoint for the at runtime. So validating or invalidating your breakpoints and removing, it will give you your complete application. So how many times we executed it, at what time is built it, and what we done with this application. So it will give you all the previous history, so for the application or project. So this is the basic your navigation stack or navigation area. These are the different options. So this is completely your project files. So we might have seen that. So what the files are there. So you can list out all the application file in the same section. Nowhere you can see any other files. If there is any file which you are using in the application, the file should be there in this folder. So these are all the physical files you can see at here. If something files are there in remote, if you are downloading, that is different. But these are like physical files. When you bundle your binary file, all these files will get compressed and you will see the same memory size. So whatever the size you have in the application, the whole application will contains these files. That is your app size. We call it as like what is the size of your application. So it doesn't mean that it follows all the size of the data which you are statically included in your application. That's your size of your app. You can find your size of your app by looking at your all the files, and if you run your application, it creates you some compile level files. So those also will calculate the size of your app. Size of the app is different from the memory of the app, so that is completely different. So if you might write some number of classes, if you are not implementing at anywhere, that is the size of your application, not a memory of your app. So these two terms are different. So here you can see like a jumping bars. So jump bars is like a very simplified. If your whole application, if I want to move from specific file, So you no need to search for it. You can directly go to your jump bar. So this is my project. So I would like to see what are available folders are. These many folders are there in my application. I want to go for specific file, so I can choose my folder and I can select it what I want, then I can move. So this is like a jumping box. You can jump from any file to anywhere. So this is my file. I would like to go on another file, then you can go it. So or else I would like to go for another file, I can move it. So this is like basic jumping area. So we call this a we call it a, like a jumping area in Xcode. Jump bots. You can use that to move for one file to another file easily throughout the application. So this is your debug area. If you write any log files, so all the log either printf. So these kind of log files like print file console information you can find in your debug area. Because why I said printf will give you the information on debug area, because the printf is like a standalone function. It's not like a user interface function. So you cannot see any printf information or file like a printf strings on your user interface. So all the user interface will be handled with your Cocoa Touch. The Cocoa Touch is supplied with your API like UI kit. So we'll use all the user interface buttons or user interface API classes separately to display any strings on your iPhone or any other iOS devices. So but this is like your file console information will use like to track your files, your functions. So if you keep some log information, all the log information will be displayed in your debug area, and it will give you that what is your object memory, whether your object is having memory or not. If it is having, so what kind of files are there in your object. So if the class is inheriting the features from super class, you can look at all the hierarchy in your debug area. So this is your filter bar. You can filter your whole application. You can filter it with the help of these filter bars. We'll see what is debug area and what is filter area. So here, since you can filter here itself, for example, before search, I would like to filter some of the folders. So I can say images. So it filters you the names which is having the images. If I want to search here, so this is like overall search. This is like filtering what you want in your application. So this is the basic thing. So this is your debug area. So here you can find the runtime objects or memory allocations are a hierarchy when you run the application. Here you can see your all output console related information. If you print some log files, you can see it here. You can see output, debugger output or target output. You can see all the output information at here. So if you while you run the application, you can find that what is the log files you are displaying when the app is started. So it will give you some different messages whether the app is started or not. So if it is failed or crashed, it gives you certain information related to that hierarchy, where it is crashed or why it is crashed. Such kind of information you can find in your debug area. So it helps you to easily identify where the application is currently or what's the issue is causing to stop the application. So those kind of information we can find in debug area. And if you want to trash it and if you want to remove some text which is displayed in debug area, simply you can use this button to clear it. This is like your trash button. So there is a utility area. So I called previously, I said like it is a inspector pan. So like a attribute inspector, I said like attribute inspector. So if you select any file, if you want some quick info, it gives you your quick information of regarding to that application or API class. When you use a predefined templates or predefined frameworks related, for example, I want to send a one mail communication, I want to display one map. So we cannot create a map by like directly, we cannot do any map creation. We have to use an existing frameworks. When we use existing framework, if you write any API class name, if you select any API class name in your navigator area, so that API class information or what kind of properties that API class is having, how what is the use of the API class, all the description and related information you can find it here in inspector panel. So it's like an inspector selector bar is also one of the area, and we can call the whole area like a utility area. This is like utility area. We can find here in this bottom, this is divided into two sections. In the bottom section you can find like the different graphical templates. So either you can drag and drop different components, user interface components. You can get a help of code snippets. So if you forgot a if condition, how to write, if you forgot how to write a method, or if you forgot some API classes implementation, or if you forgot to write some any different syntaxes, you can use this snippet area. Like in utility area will give you all the help. You can find the library selectors. There are different selectors you can see. For example, as I earlier, like these are all files. You can see this icon, you can understand. So this is like a file templates. What are the file templates are supporting for this specific project? If you create any, this xcode will be used to do two applications. You can create an application for TV OS, or else Apple TVs, you can create an application. You can create an application for Apple watches. You can create an application for Apple devices like iOS and all, and you can create an application for Mac OS. You can do all application creation from the xcode itself. It is a single point of contact to develop any of application for Mac products or Apple products. So when this single source is supporting for all different directions, so these API classes will give you the information based on the selection. If this project is created for iOS, it gives you the classes which supports the iOS. You can see Cocoa Touch classes. So these are the different test cases as well. So you can find what are the classes we can use. We can see in the different symbols. As I said, there is a playground and there is a shift class and there is a object to C file. Since the xcode supports both languages, shift and object to C, so we can see different files. As I said, is a playground is one of the simplest approach to justify or test your code. What is the output of your line? When I write a single line, before you write here, simply you can create your playground and copy the same code and paste it there. It will give you the output. If that is the same intention to write the line, then you can copy and place it in your application. It's like a very simplified easiest way to justify your code or the statements, whether is it a meaningful implementation for your requirement or not. So, and this is an option to give you like all the code snippets what you have. So this is a code snippet library which inbuilt is comes with your xcode. If I forgot something, so in xcode will you can write a combination of C and C++ code for your iOS application. So if we want to write some C language code, I want to execute, then still you can execute. If I want to write a C++ code, you can write a C++ code as well. So here you can see the C++ try class blocks and code data, and there are different concepts. You can see like do while. If you forgot some do while, how to write a do while. So you can see like this is the syntax. So this is a help you can find it. So if you forgot some syntaxes, or if you want to save the time as well. So I want to write a do while. So instead of do all the things, just simply search in your code snippet library and get and copy and paste here. So it helps you at some level to use some kind of sometimes we feel like the syntax is very hard, so you can use it from this help. So this is one of the GCD implementation. So writing these many lines of code, it might be tough for you to keep in mind and remember all these things. Simply you can use that concept if you know the concept. So this concept will be used to handle the concurrence execution or threading approach. Just you can simply copy that and you can drag and drop here, so you will get the code. This is a code snippet for a easiest this is a dispatch source for timer, and this is a dispatch source for thread creation. This is the easiest way. It helps you. As I said, xcode helps a lot for the developer to make the application easiest way of development. So these are all different snippets we use based on your requirement. Switch class and shift struct are defined as shift subclass. This coming to your shift classes, how you write a shift class and syntax and all the things. This gives you your all graphical elements like object library. What are objects are available for your application or project. So for your product, you can create a label or button or segment controller. These are different UI elements. As I said, your application can use drag and drops as well. So this is my, if you can see that without writing any single line of code, I can able to design my screen how I want. So these are all the buttons. So if I want to do something, if I want to add, simply drag and drop here, then you will get that element. So you can set the background and you can change it what is the way you want. So these are the fixed sizes. Some of the elements are fixed sizes, you cannot enhance or you cannot change the size of it. Some of the elements we can change the dimension. So this is like a drag and drop object elements, whatever is required, and if you want to use. This is media library. So what are the images or graphics or assets are available in this application? So you can see that 1.jpg or 1.png or 2.png are available in my application. This is like 3.png and 2.png. And if I open my images, I can find all the things 132 images jpg. So these are the files or assets are available in my application. If I want to see that what my project is having, so that I can able to find here. And this is your property inspector. Here you can see all the properties. I selected a view, so what properties the view is supporting, so or how it is inherited, what kind of classes are the super classes for this view. So you can find all the super class inherited properties as well. So it is a better way to easily understand by looking at your xcode by selecting the application or API class name. So this is the basic overview. So where you write the application, so this is your environment, this is your area where you can write all your code. So this is editor area. If, as I said, it's an editor area, this is the bottom is debug area. So in top of it we got like debug bars and filter bars or utility area. This is all about your application, your xcode. So these buttons are different, I will tell you later. So what is this assistant editor and all. So if you use the latest xcode, you before running the application, you can check your user interface how it looks for different devices. When we are having various different dimension devices, we can easily check how it looks when it comes to different device. So if I go to this, since my application is having, so you can look at here, there are the two, it's divided into two parts. So here you can see there are different test classes or callers or includes, there are different approaches on manual and all. Let me go for previews. There is some option like preview. Remove it, remove it. It may be my old application. These are all the classes which I used internally. So if I want to run some specific things, I can run it here. Since this is the old project, I was not able to find. Where is this? What happened to this? Select a storyboard and open it. So here where you can now click this and automatic, you will get a preview. So we have to select the graphical user interface, then we need to go with this. Based on the file name, it will give you the options what you want to run before without executing your application. You can get a help. So this is a preview. So this is for iPhone 4-inch. I want to test for iPhone 5-inch. So how it looks. So without running your application, you can see how this screen looks like. So if I run, so if it is iPhone 4, it looks like this. 5, it will be like this. And if it is iPad version, what is the orientation. In landscape mode it looks like this. So it will give you a preview before running the application. So I can use this another page, how my second page looks like when it's changing the different devices and different orientations. So without running your application, you can able to, the xcode will give you an option to see how the application look and feel without running or without moving this application to your main like simulator, without building the application. So you can able to look into your screen design how it looks. So such kind of powerful experience will give you that, and it will helps you a lot for the developer to make the things easier. Before, you no need to build or you no need to compile the application if you want to see how your user interface appears. So this is the basic components or the basic structure of your xcode. I will tell you what are other things are there. So but in an overall view, an end to end, this is your xcode. So what is the naming conventions and which area is for what and where to search or where to find, and this is all about how xcode internally compile and all that is comes with your llvm. So when you set your application, will target this application to run in which processors. All the configuration will be, if you select your project, it will give you different options. So it will give you that how many targets are there for your project. If your project information, if you want to know, it will give you different section of information. General information about your target. So what is the name of your application identifier? So each application in the app store is identified with one unique name. So this is the name. When I created this application, I gave this name. What version of the product it is, I provided this version as like a 1.0. So what is the bill number? This is my first bill, I gave it as like a 1. So which team is running this application? So team in the sense you have some credentials of apple store, so you need to give that apple store credentials. If the store credentials are related to company, so it will give you the company name. So if the store information is related to individual, it gives you your developer name. So it gives you your team name. So which team is running this application, so that will be give a unique identification. And what is the deployment information? I said development, target, and deployment. So development and testing and deployment. So this simple deployment information will give you the details about which iOS target this project is targeted, or which device this project is supporting. Either I said is like a universal, so this application runs in two devices, one is iPhones and one is iPads. Either if I want to make an individual, I can select it here. This is your configuration area. And what is the class name which runs at first at an interface? Interface is different and classes are different. Their main interface is related to the storyboard. Which graphical user interface runs at first? If you run the application, your application can have more than one storyboard. So which storyboard wants to be presented at first? So that will comes here. So what kind of orientations your app is supporting? So this is device orientation properties. Either your app is supporting portrait or upside down or landscaped or landscape right. So what are the options are selected? Your app supports all these options which are selected. And the status bar, you might have seen your iOS, you might have seen your iPhones on top. You can see the battery and the time and all the things that comes with your status bar. Either you want to display your status bar or not. If you want to display what color you want or what style you want, you can give some information. And what is the app icons? App icon is nothing but the initial icon. When you download the application, you can see the name and image. So that initial image will call it like an app icon. So which icon? So this app icon is comes with your Apple assets. So here there are different X assets. This is the app icon. So these are all the images we drag and drop here. As I said, 2x, 3x, and 1x. You might you might have remembered these things like I explained you earlier. So what is 2x and 3x and images? This is the assets area. So where you set all the images for your project. We'll use the app icon. So whatever the image is provided as an app icon, that will be your app application icon. So that app icon will be fetched from this asset catalog. And this is about your app icons and launch images. You can find this here. Before, when we launch an application, you might have seen every app, most of the applications will present you one image or graphic image which talks about the specific application. So that you can set for your project by giving some image name at here. So is there any external files you want to add? You can add with the embedded binaries. And if you want to add a third party libraries, you can add it and link it here for your project. This is for your target. So this target, your one project can have n number of targets. You can add a new target as well. You can find two targets. One is development target and one is test target. Development files are different and testing files are different. One a class can be targeted for it can be targeted for multiple targets. One class can support multiple targets. You can add anything. If you select one target, if you run that, only those target related files will get executed. Other targeted files will be in idle state. So one project can support n number of targets. Just keep in mind, one project you can create n targets. So but you have to select one target. That target files are related to which deployment. So this configuration is related to one target. So I'm saying that the deployment target is 8. This means it supports iOS 8 and above versions. If I give a deployment target as 3, then it starts from the 3 and it can run up to the end. So like it runs all the category of OS. So some kind of lower version. So there might be some API methods which won't support from one version to another version. Ideally, we'll give here what is the least deployment target. So the target is 8.2 is the least. This is the support. It's the minimum requirement starts from 8.2 and above. So it gives you your related information, general information about your target, and it gives you the capabilities. What capabilities your application is having? Is your app is supporting Apple Pay? Is your app is supporting VPN configurations? Is app supports maps? Is your app can support security data storage? Whether your application is supporting the HomeKit or data protection or wireless configuration or wallet, whether your application is storing information is storing in the iCloud, or whether your app is supports the notifications. So these kind of things you can identify. If you open any new application, when you are entering the application your project, you can open your application by looking at your xcode and your project and all the basic configuration. You can see what functionalities are there in your app. If there are any buttons are enabled, then we can find out. So this application is supporting this feature, this application is supporting this feature. These are all the capabilities of your application. Since this project is not having any capabilities, so all the capabilities are off. If I enable it, then this application is supporting that feature. It will add some of the files and configuration files. You can use those configuration files to implement those specific functionality. So it gives you your basic understanding what this product supports. Since now this product supports zero capabilities, there is no cloud or push notification. It's like a simple application which doesn't talk about any of these features. These are the resource tags, if there are any resources, if it is there. This is info. So it gives you the information about your project. Like your target, what is the basic information, as I said, what are the general information is added there. We can find all the general information at here. And you can see like is there any documents are added, or is there any important UTIs or URL types which supports your application. You can find all the basic information. It's like general information and capabilities. Is there any resource, or what is the basic information? This info file is major for your application. This decides your application flow, and it's one of the so all the basic settings or configurations are high priority when you create your project. These are the build settings. I said it's a build in the sense, if you compile your application, all code will work for compilation. Sometimes we use like C language based dynamic libraries, or different libraries we use. So in that scenarios, you might have used some compiled applications, because you may not have every time you may not have all the source code files. Sometimes you have a object libraries. So we use those generated object files and we'll add into this. We'll add one certain library, static libraries. In that scenarios, you have to set your build settings according to your third party libraries. If you look into your all build settings, you can understand about your application. So how, what kind of features your app is supporting, what kind of architecture your app is supporting, the architectural SDK. So architecture is can be, there are different kinds of architectures right now in there in your iOS devices. They are using ARM 4 or ARM 32. So there are different architecture SDKs. So your iOS architecture is which architecture this is supporting. We'll see you that what is the base SDK which you are building this application. You can find it here. What is the build SDK, latest SDK? I'm using 9.2 for this to build this application. So I can write all the code SDK code from 9.2. It supports latest SDK. So but it is fixed from your deployment target. If I study deployment is 8.2, still I'm using iOS 9.2 SDK, that is fine. There is nothing is wrong. So you can use all your 8.0 SDK API classes, and it gives you like what environment your application is running. Either is it in debug mode or release mode. So based on that, you can change certain things in internally. So for release mode, you can debug mode, you will enable all printf methods or log files, or if it is release mode, you won't enable anything. Just you disable all your log information in your release mode. You can find more information about your application before it build. So it gives you, so because of that reason it's called it like a build settings. So what are the assets files are you are using for this application, and what build location where you are storing this compiled, it's like a .app file. So once you compile this application, where you would like to store it, give you that information. And who is authorized to sign this application. You should have digitally signed this app before this application is moved to your app store or device. So then it needs your signing identity. So identities talk about your Apple developer name. So what's the Apple developer you are using here, that will be there in your identity. You're supposed to pick here. So there are the iOS developer, you can see different names. I will select my name. So because since I have some Apple account, I can find my name in it here. So this application is signed by me. So it is a signing identity. Who is signing this application? This is like a one of the base app. So he will give you that configuration. This code signing identity is required when you build your application to devices, or when you move your application from Mac operating system to either App Store or real-time device or real devices. So then we have to attach this code sign identity. So you need to digitally sign your app, then only your device can recognize your application, or else you cannot install your app directly into your devices or any other devices. There should be one identity or signature for your application. These are related to your deployment targets. This is vary based on your applications. Most of the times, most of the applications, they won't change these basic features except code sign and bit code information. There are many, some 10 to 12 features in build settings we usually change. When apart from that, all the key name values will be like that, will be kept as it is. We won't add any other name changes or any other values for these fields. We'll keep as it is. There are certain key values, will add different values. For different keys we'll add different values. There are any very few, like search paths or else packaging. And as I said, it's like code signing or debug or release mode or base SDK or architecture. These are any very few. So I can tell you that base things. But this you can keep in mind. So what is your compiler versions we are using, or which version is running your XIB files? What is the XIB compiler which take care about your interface builder? This is interface builder storyboard compilers. So who compiles your storyboards, and how, what kind of mechanism it follows internally. You can find all the information. If you change some configuration at here, it changes the behavior of your application execution and building your app. So since it affects your compiling of your application, so it's the Apple LLVM. I said it's like low level virtual machine will take care about your compilation and all. It throws your warnings or errors and whatever it is. It uses two, Objective C and ARC. So it gives you that what kind of feature it's there. So it gives you the basic configuration if something which needs to be changed. So you can see object is Apple warnings with C++. If there are some different C++ code has been written, who will take care to compile the C++? So C++ code is also be configured and that can be compiled. So there are the set and build settings here for C++. These are by default. It will take care about it. And they are the what kind of architecture is it, 64-bit or 32-bit, and what is the architecture? Implicit architecture is conversion for 32-bit type, and it supports for 64 architecture as well. So this you can find all the basic build information in this build settings. So these are the build phases. So build phases is different. The build phases is like a different one, like what are the libraries are added for your application, you can find it your build phases. So build rules will keep it as it is. We won't change anything. So these are like default rules. Whatever comes with your application, just keep these things. So this is the basic uh, description about your application. So when you are assigned for a new application in a new team, so how can I know what the features my application is having? If you look into your Xcode, then you can find that what features is there in your app. You don't need to ask any of the team members. So you can easily get to know what is the abstraction of your app and what features are there. So it helps you for each developer is common. There is nothing is future. There is no difference if you work in real time or if you learn in normal way. There is the same. Even if I go for real time, so I will write the code as per the Xcode, because since this is the common tool and this is only the one point to develop any of the iOS application. So this is the project related information and build settings. I told you the targets. This is if you select a project name, what your debug deployment target, what I given it, you can see the same here. And what are the configurations is debug and release. There are two modes are supporting for this app. You can debug, you can release. There is no option to deploy this application. So there are two debugs. So what the configuration your application is having currently, which configuration is using. So what kind of language supports are there for this application. So localization is talks about language in geographic area. So we can enter different things, like you can use different languages. It supports many languages, like you can use different languages. If you select, so what are the languages it's supporting. So these many languages are supported by the Apple. So you can see what are the languages are there. You can write any kind of language text information, so that can be displayed on your application based on the iOS settings. So if the application is running in US, you can give the English. If the application is running in Japan or else German, you can use the German, or if it is Japan, you can use the Japanese, or French or Italian. So it's based on your country. You can use it's simply, you can internationalize your app or you can localize your app with this feature, and you can identify what the localization is there in your app. And the build settings are common. As I told, what is there in your targets, the same build settings will be there for your project. So this is the basic information before we use the Xcode.